Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we need to complete the Valley Air Race here. And if you are seeing this attempt, that means that this attempt was a successful attempt, despite that physics bug. It wasn't an unrecoverable physics bug, so it's all good. Let's get out of here. So step number one, of course, is we are going to build up some airspeed. This thing is fairly sluggish until we get up to like 250 or 300 meters per second. And that's going to make landing very interesting, certainly. But let's just get some airspeed built up here and bring ourselves on through this checkpoint. Beautiful. And now we need to go over to this checkpoint. We've overbanked that slightly, but it's okay. It is recovered. Beautiful. Now we'll go to checkpoint 4. This is a very generous checkpoint. It's very large. We're going to want to pre-bank a little bit here because we are going to need to be turning out for checkpoint 5. This is again a fairly generous checkpoint here. So let's just bring this right on through. We're going to be pre-banking for checkpoint 6 a bit. Okay. Checkpoint 6 is also reasonably generous, so that looks good. I'm definitely starting to get the hang of flying this thing. Starting to. Okay, checkpoint 7. There we go. And next up is checkpoint 8. This is very tight in here. I want to get a little altitude and try to come in at it this way. Okay, very, very tight there. No doubt about that. Checkpoint 9. Overbanked. Ooh, did not nail it. Okay, that's fine. I tried to correct the overbanking. It did not happen. We're going to come around. Time is not an issue. We just got to be patient with this. We have so much time to complete this. This is a very, very fast plane for this challenge. Okay. So back around we come. There we go. And we're going to want to bank this way a little bit and then turn it and be banking this way. Oh, did not nail that? That's unfortunate. Once again, it's a very small circle to nail. So we just got to be patient. That's all there is to it. Have patience. So I'm just going to head out this way a little bit. Again, we have so much time. Time is not a concern here. So I'm going to wait till we have 3 kilometers of distance and then turn. Okay, we're losing altitude here. We're going to have to come out of that bank a little bit. Now we're gaining too much altitude. Okay. We're overbanked a bit. There we go. That's more like it. Okay, so now I want to bring us out over this way. Checkpoint 10 is quite generous. And checkpoint 11 is a long ways away. So we're going to want to bring this up over here. And bank it a little bit over like so. We're going to need to adjust this banking on the way in for sure. But for now, this is reasonable. When our airspeed is up at like 300 meters per second, this thing is very stable and quite maneuverable. I mean, it's not strictly stable. It's still trying to nose down naturally a little bit, but it's easy to compensate for. So that's not an issue. It's mostly just we have a bit of an issue with the slow airspeed, right? Okay, so you'll notice I banked out this direction before going around and making this run. That was very, very deliberate. Okay, we are overbanked here. I want to bring it around this way. Too much altitude. Okay. Let's bring us up, and we'll make another run at it. Just waiting for our altitude to go down a bit. The nose is not pitching down right now, so I'm going to have to unbank this a little bit. We have way too much altitude at this point, so we're going to need to drop that altitude down and turn that into a bank. Our airspeed has dropped a fair amount due to the amount of climb that we did there. So that's understood. I don't like this. Hang on. I don't like this at all. Let's bank out over here. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, let's make a run at this checkpoint. This looks decent. There we go. Okay, next checkpoint. I don't want to try to make that bank. I'm going to bring it around over here. Cool. Okay, so we're lining up for checkpoint 13 here. We're coming in a little below it. That's good. I want to be a little below it. Beautiful. So checkpoint 14. We're going to head out over this way, and look at how much time we have left. We have 9 minutes left on this. This is insane how much time we have left, because this is a very, very fast play. Okay, so checkpoint 14, we are going to hop straight through here. Just banking it out over this way a bit. Okay, checkpoint 15. That is an exceptionally tight corner. I'm not going to try to make that. We're going to head off this way and build up a little bit of distance. So I'm just keeping an eye on that distance. It is now 3 kilometers, so I'm now going to start a bank out this direction. And we're going to make a run for it from this angle, which is a much, much better angle to make a run for it from. Okay, I'm concerned about altitude. There we go. Checkpoint 16, that is a very tight angle. I think we can actually get that, though. Yeah. Okay, so now it wants us to go in for the landing. I'm cutting our engines. Okay. So, hang on. That actually worked. The landing was always going to be spicy. I mean, yeah. Sure. We'll take it. So that's excellent. We finished the contract. Beautiful. So for the record, that was probably, I think, 4 attempts, something along those lines. So that's pretty neat. Okay, let's see if we can unlock any more contracts through the tech tree. Okay, so let's see here. No contract here, no contract here, no contract here, no contract here, nothing here. Nope. No. Wait, did this say more contracts? No, it did not. Okay, so let's head down this direction then. No, no. That's a lot of things, but no. No, no, no. Okay, so there's no new contracts in this category. We can see if any of these that we have unlocked would get us new contracts, but I'd be a little surprised. This gets us new contracts. So management board. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, space travel would. Space habitat would not get us new contracts, surprisingly. Sonic boom we could unlock. That would not get us new contracts. Okay. So we've got almost like owls here. Yeah, that would be night vision. I mean, night vision would probably be good to have, but let's grab management board for now. That will give us new contracts. So let's hop back out here, and I want to check in. Okay, so this is a station, and this is a progression now. So this is another air race. It's a slightly longer track distance, and it is shorter time. Okay. Now, this is not going to be great for us in terms of income, but it's a progression mission. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to accept that, but we're going to do this Spaceport Esperanza first. So we need to launch a new craft. We need to launch with the Radix module with an inclination of 30 plus or minus 1 degree, an apoapsis of 300 kilometers, okay, circularized at 300, and deorbit our stage by bringing it back to the atmosphere. Presumably we want to deorbit our stage, but not the Radix module. Okay, let's see what we've got here. So we're going to use this plane again for the other race contract, and I might try to do that off camera. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that ends up going. For now, I want to do something in space where I'm, you know, actually somewhat decent at it. So we're going to do that for now. So we're going to make a new craft here, and I want to add in the module for this. So this is the Radix module, the first module for the spaceport Esperanza, with everything needed to sustain an early station. Only one of these will be necessary. Okay, how large is this? Okay, that's reasonably large. So we can increase our size here up to about there or so. Maybe even a little bit bigger to like here, because we're probably going to want to have a fairing for that, right? So we would put in a fairing base, and that would be definitely expanded out to be about like that. And then we'd want to have the fairing, and then the fairing nose cone. But that's going to need to be a fair amount higher, right? So let's make this attach here. And then let's put in the fairing to about here, and then the fairing nose cone like that. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now we could put in a fuel tank here. That is a very, very hefty fuel tank. What is the width on this? Okay, so this is about a 1.8 meter radius or so. Somewhere around there. I'm having a hard time getting it to exactly 1.8 meter. There we go, 1.8. And then this guy, I would want to have also be at 1.8. Okay, something kind of like that. So we would want to have probably some sort of a booster stage here. I'm guessing we would want these to be Spirit engines, but probably multiple of them. And we're going to need them significantly larger than this. So let's make a few. I want this to be in radial like X4 symmetry here. We'll think about something kind of like that. And then as far as the size goes, we're going to need these sizes to be fairly large. I'm going to put this for now at around like 150 or so. Something about like that. These are monoprop right now. I want them to be liquid engines, but I want them pressure fed. So if we look at the specific impulse, the gas generator engines are 274, whereas the pressure-fed engines are 291. So that's much better specific impulse. And then as far as the nozzle throat size, having this be low would be fine. I'm wondering what this thrust to weight is. 0.17. So that is incredibly low thrust to weight in vacuum. So that is noted that these are not phenomenal in vacuum right now. We'll work on dialing that in. And I'm wondering if the nozzle length should be lowered at all. Looks like we start losing efficiency right away. So if we want these to be maximum efficiency, it will be about here. We should probably consider dropping the size down to around 100% for the moment, but you can see there, 0.08 on that thrust to weight. That's not great. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, depending on how we put that in orbit, right? So let's put an interstage here, and that'll be fine. And then we're going to put in a fuel tank here, and this is going to need to be a pretty long fuel tank. What is the maximum height that we can put on the alley pad? I'm not actually sure. Hang on. It should say in here. So 50 meters tall. What is our current height? Okay, 50.2 meters. So I want to drop this down to maybe being about 30 meters or so in length here. So that'll be relatively fine. And then the question is, how are we going to lift this? Because this is heavy. So we're definitely going to want like a mage engine down here, and that's going to be... I mean, the thrust to weight on stage 1 here is currently 0.22. So that's obviously not going to be good enough. Now, how much are we making for this contract? 50 million? Okay. So our current price tag is 2.8 million. This is well below budget at this point. So that seems good. So as far as the nozzle throat size goes, we probably want to increase that up to maximum like this. The nozzle is currently a Bravo nozzle, and the Bravo, Bell, and Cone. Yeah, Bravo is the one that we want. Okay. Gimbaling is probably fine here. We probably do want this to be a gas generator engine. We definitely want this to be a gas generator engine. And we can bring up the overall size of this engine if we really wanted to, like this. Or we could do multiple of the engines. And I think multiple smaller engines is probably going to be the way to go. So if we have this at 100%, we can position this out over here. And we can do 4 of these. And just change those positions ever so slightly to be something kind of like this or so. And that puts us at 1.17 thrust to weight. So that's obviously too low of thrust to weight, but this entire rocket at this point is less in cost than what this was. So I'm thinking SRBs on the side to help lift us off and get us going. So that should be reasonably fine. So that would be side interstages. They would go like out over here or so. And then we would put in fuel tanks out here. And as far as the height of those, I think that we would keep these relatively small. And then we would probably put in a hemisphere up here. And then we would drop the overall height down to here or so, approximately. And then we would grab the Ifrit solid boosters. Okay, I would probably want to increase the size of this Ifrit up to, well, up to about flush here. So this would be like 168%. The nozzle length, well, actually, I'm wondering about the specific impulse here. So this is 190 currently. 192 for a bell. So we want it to be a bell cone, for sure. The throat size, I want to maximize the thrust out of this. And then the nozzle length, we're going to optimize that to be at about, I see 2.67 here. That seems fine. So this is going to be very powerful. Maybe a little bit too powerful. We'll have to test that. But I want to get our mirror set up here. So this is obviously not in the correct angling. Let's move this over to be at 270. There we go. That'll be a little bit better. So that's correctly set up now. And I want to check our staging at this point. So as of right now, if we looked at our staging, we would see that these mage engines fire separately from the Ifrits. I don't necessarily want that. I'm going to move all of these engines down here, then this interstage fires, then the interstage here fires, and the fairing. I'm actually going to move the fairing to here. And then the Radix service module would go all the way up here. About like that would be where our staging would be. So that seems reasonably fine. Now, our stage 1 thrust to weight is 5.25. That's too much. So we can scale back on these SRBs by a pretty hefty amount. We can scale these down to be, well, I want the thrust to weight to be around 1.8, maybe 1. I usually, for KSP, I would go for like 1.6. So something kind of like that. I wonder if there's a piece that we could put here that could adapt to the engine size. That'd be kind of cool looking, and it would add a little bit more fuel. So that would be basically like a hemisphere that goes on the bottom here, but then adapts down, right? Or I guess the way that we could try to do that is a separate fuel tank here that scales down like this, right? And then the engine would attach in like that. And then we could set the actual size of the fuel tank to be something like that. Okay, now I want to make sure that these are all in solid rocket fuel mode. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so it'd be something kind of like this. Now we could drop this down a little bit physically, and that would mean doing something kind of like that. That seems relatively fine. And our thrust to weight here, 1.68, but the ending thrust to weight is 10.10. So we might build up too much speed through the atmosphere. I don't know. This is a very powerful rocket. This might be too much. Let's put this out on the alley pad, and I want to put in a quick test here to see just how much thrust to weight this ends up looking like. So we know that we need our inclination to be... Do we actually want to be on the alley pad here, or would we rather be on the DSC? The DSC is very equatorial. I'm actually going to pull this back, and we're going to put this on the DSC. I think the DSC will be more expensive. So the launch fee here... Oh, we don't actually have the... No, we do have the DSC launch pad. So the launch fee is going to be very expensive, but we can afford it. So the ideal scenario, yeah, perfectly placed at the equator for the most efficient equatorial orbits. We're not actually trying to put this into an equatorial orbit. We're trying to put this into a precise 30-degree orbit. So let's turn on our things here. We want to be going eastways, and the question is, do we want to be going at 120 degrees, or do we want to be going at 60 degrees? I don't actually know which is going to be positive and which is going to be negative. We can do a quick test here and figure it out. So let's launch this in a simulated fashion. This is going to be kind of awkward because of the tower there. We can see that this is positive. Okay, so that seems to be approximately correct. So let's hold attitude here for the moment. And we're going to want to slowly bring this on down. But yeah, 30-degree inclination is definitely where we're going to want to go. So that is looking good. We're at a 15-degree inclination right now, and that's going to continue to go up. So I want to drop this eventually, but you can see our apoapsis here is only about 12 kilometers. So we're certainly going to want to continue burning through this, and I'm wondering about fuel percentages. Okay, noted. So the SRBs are going to burn out considerably before the liquid fuel. That looks good. We're not moving that fast right now. In fact, we're moving fairly slowly at this moment. That's a good thing. This is a good sign so far. This seems to be reasonably okay. So we see a reasonable apoapsis here. I want to bring us over to around a 30-degree pitch right now. We're going to be ditching our SRBs shortly. So I'm just waiting for those to burn out. Okay, they've still got 10% fuel, actually. Let's bring this over to about a 10-degree pitch. This has really good attitude control. Okay, now we're waiting for the SRBs to burn out. Okay, goodbye SRBs. Fantastic. They're attached in a slightly weird place, but it seems okay. So now I want to drop us over to a 0-degree pitch and be getting purely horizontal speed. So we're launching into a very similar inclination to where we want to be. You can see we're losing efficiency on that. We'll probably have to do a small inclination change, but I'm really not too concerned about that. The real question is, once we get into orbit, or not orbit here, once we get into vacuum, how is this section going to perform? What is the delta V on that, no less? Okay, so that is the fairing and doing this at this point. So this is going to be very low thrust to weight. I'm still wondering about how much DV we have here, which we can probably see from here, right? Okay, so our stage delta V is about 4 kilometers per second. So this is more than enough delta V, but is it enough thrust to weight? I want to be in orbital mode here. This is the main concern at this point. Everything else from that launch went magnificently. I'm really happy with how that launch went overall. But what's our time to apoapsis? Well, it's 4 minutes right now. So we have a fair amount of time to build up orbital speed. We're actually really, really close to orbital velocity here, but we're losing orbital speed right now just because we have very low thrust to weight here. So we could definitely tune up these engines a little bit. That is definitely something that could happen. I would like to make perhaps a slight heading change here to get a little bit more inclination out of this. But we can always do an inclination change. That's not that big of a deal. We launched into nearly the correct orbit. Not quite, but nearly. So we're going to do a small inclination change here. And yeah, you can see here, time to apoapsis is currently 3.4 minutes. So it's definitely concerning, the amount of thrust to weight we have here. I think that we're probably going to need to tune up our vacuum engines. But this isn't surprising. This is what we expected. So we're at 28 degrees right now. That's going up very slowly. I'm going to bring this down to a 45-degree heading because I would like to increase that inclination a little bit more. But this is going to, because of the thrust offset, this is going to harm the amount of horizontal speed we're getting. So you can see here our lateral speed is 2.74 kilometers per second. Our orbital velocity is still actually going down. So I'm going to bring this back over to a 60-degree heading. We're still going to be gaining some amount of inclination here, but that's just going to be off a little bit. The question is, how much do we need to tune up this stage? The rest of it was great. The rest of it, honestly, right on the money. It's this stage here that's very weak. So there are definitely things that we could do to boost that. And you can see here, our time to apoapsis is 2.5 minutes. So we probably want to give ourselves some pitch here to try to push out this time to apoapsis a little bit. Let's go up to 2x speed here, because we need to be offsetting this vertical speed somewhat. But our thrust to weight is just tremendously low, 0.11. That is the problem here. To be honest, I'm not convinced that we can make it into orbit here, because our vertical speed is still going down at this point. So we could do a couple of things. We can reduce the amount of fuel in this stage, and that might not be a bad idea. Yeah, even this, our vertical velocity is dropping pretty considerably. Checking our orbital velocity, it's holding at 2,900. It's still holding at 2,900, but time to apoapsis is ticking down at this moment, and yeah, now our orbital velocity is going up a little bit. But it's not going up enough. So this is the problem here, and that is not a significant one. So we can definitely deal with this. We can cut the amount of fuel here by a decent amount. I'm thinking maybe like 25 or 33%, something along those lines. We could tune up these engines as well. There's a lot more size and thrust that we could get out of these engines. We could just go to bigger engines. There are options that we can take here. I'm noticing that our time to apoapsis is still ticking down quite a bit, and I kind of want to just bring us back over to zero pitch at this point. You can see our orbital velocity is coming up a fair amount. We might be able to get into orbit here, actually. Hang on. This is interesting. So we're basically at apoapsis right now, right? But what we can do is we can hold here and continue to burn on the other side of the apoapsis for a while. The only question is, will we re-enter the atmosphere? And if we do, that is a significant problem. But if we don't re-enter the atmosphere, that's not a huge issue. We would need to build up this orbital velocity a fair amount more. So it's very clear that this stage is incredibly weak, and we knew that when we launched this. To be honest, I didn't expect to get this far. All I was really angling for was checking the inclination, and then I was like, you know what? I want to just kind of try it. Cool. Okay, so we're just continuing to burn here for now. And you can see that our orbital speed is about 3,000 at this point. I'm trying to remember exactly what orbital velocity in this game is. It's pretty close to this. But yeah, I think it's like 3,300 or something along those lines. So obviously the main issue here is the thrust to weight. I think at this point it's very clear that we're not going to be... Well, actually we're at 3,100. What if we put this at 30 degrees pitch here? And we were offsetting this vertical velocity a little bit. I want to find out. I want to find out if this will work. I don't think it will. But it's clear that this stage has too much burn time and not enough thrust, right? We need to alter that ratio. But our periapsis here, you can see it's coming up. It's currently only 60 kilometers below ground. We might be able to do this. So you can see we're currently trying to offset our vertical speed a little bit. And we're currently at 158 kilometers here. So that is absolutely noted. I'm currently thinking that we should move back to a 0-degree pitch and just pull that periapsis up as much as we can. I think we can get there, actually. I'm surprised about this, but I think we can get there. So I'm just going to keep burning here until the apoapsis is 300 kilometers. That's the goal right now. You can see this is increasing faster and faster. We might need to burn a little bit radial, but I'm noticing... I'm just looking at the trend here. I think that we're trending to being in orbit around the time that our apoapsis reaches 300 kilometers. Although we're losing efficiency on the periapsis, but we only need less than 10 kilometers. I think this made it, shockingly. Absolutely shocking. We made it. Okay, so we just need to get that apoapsis up to 300 kilometers. We are in orbit as of right now. An inclination change is something we are going to do. It's only going to be a degree or two. Engine shutdown. So our apoapsis is where we want it to be. So now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to slightly change our inclination, and I'm going to do that at the regular descending node. So that is fine. We want to set our inclination, instead of being 28.83, we want this to be at exactly 30. Okay, so let's turn down the sensitivity on that a little bit. 3, 2, and 1, and exactly 30. Okay, so there we go. From here, it's simple. So we actually succeeded that on on a whim test flight. I love it. It is time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we don't have a gyroscope on here. Okay, we'll pull this back. We now know that this is possible. But we're going to have to pull this back, unfortunately, because I forgot to put a gyroscope on. We can put that into the command disk, and that's not a problem. So volume for gyros, 95. Volume for battery, 5. We should probably also put some solar panels on here. Again, I wasn't intending that to actually succeed. So we can put some solar panels on like that, and sure, I guess that's fine. But we could cut the size of it for cost, but honestly, I'm not concerned about the cost. So that seems fine. So that's the only problem I noted. Honestly, this will work. We just need to actually get it into orbit. I'm still going to cut the fuel here a little bit. So I want to cut this down to be around like maybe like 3 meters. Like that. Okay, and then I'm going to move these guys back down. So that means we're going to get further on this first stage, but our thrust to weight will be much better on this stage up here. Okay, so it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. This is going to be the space station launcher. But that is definitely a very good proof of concept. So that is excellent. We'll get this launched next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Hiro Marutsu, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.